Okay. Back. We're no longer playing copyrighted music, which is good. I got the mic audio, seeing levels. Let me go and delete these real quick. It wasn't up for very long, but let's see. I really don't want it up at all. Oh, hopefully, I know YouTube actually has this thing where it will. This is so different. Oh, okay, I'm just not in the right page. I think YouTube. Oh, okay, yeah, I see it as a 39-second. Okay, perfect. Sometimes it's smart enough to like if you have a hiccup during your stream, it's smart enough to like recognize that your thing just hitched, and it will. If it comes back in time, it will going back into that original video. Deleting is permanent and cannot be undone. Okay, 39 seconds. Yeah. Whatever. Okay, let me get Twitch also real quick here. I will actually go in on the stream here. Sure, 40 seconds. Yep. Also, I noticed I never did change the video. Yep. Noticed I never did change the title. I'll change it now, but I don't know if it actually affects or how that works. CircuitPython, we're going to be doing PR reviews and maybe getting back into core TileGrid changes. Okay, I don't know if that will actually update the titles. If not, I'll go back after the fact. Okay, a couple other small things. I'm going to turn off the chat since I'm not going to be able to really moderate the YouTube chat right now. Folks can chat in Twitch if you want, or you can reach out to me on Discord as well, on the Adafruit Discord. Either way is fine if you happen to be watching this and are interested in asking a question or interacting or telling me something or anything like that. So let's off the chat for YouTube. Okay, and now on to the actual real stream. So first, a small bit of housekeeping, in this case, quite literal housekeeping. I have some folks coming to work on my house at some point today. At least that's the plan. So I may end up having to leave and stop the stream fairly abruptly. If that happens, then hopefully folks will see this intro and know what's up. So just be aware when I get the call that those folks are here, then I will have to duck out probably and go let them in and talk to them and get them set up with access to where they're going to be working. So if I go away, abruptly, that's the reason why. Okay. So I will load up the Twitch page over here, and I'll try to keep an eye on the Twitch chat in case if anybody is in there. Yeah. Okay. So this afternoon I am just doing CircuitPython Monday stuff. For folks that don't know, I am working on CircuitPython full-time now on Mondays, so I work a kind of a full 8-hour day on Mondays working on CircuitPython related stuff, oftentimes like library development and PR reviews and stuff like that, but sometimes other things as well, like running the meeting. I ran the weekly meeting a little while ago, and really just whatever is around at the time. And so I'm still doing that today, and basically I figured I would throw on the stream in case folks are interested in watching along. Right now what I'm going to do is some PR reviews, and then depending on how many we get done and how long it ends up taking, then I may go back to working on TileGrid, updating the bitmap on the TileGrid inside the core. I put a PR out for that, and I got some good feedback from Jeff and Dan that I still need to implement. First one today is this from Bill Van Leeuwen. This is a GitHub user, and they have submitted their first PR for CircuitPython projects, and it was a PR to add the typing information to this library BMP 280, which reminds me, I don't think I ever did make the PR for the library that I did the types on. We should probably do that as well today. So I'm going to basically just kind of go through and review the PR. So one thing is we don't necessarily need to add a second one of these. I think one of this one, well, it's Lady Ada. Usually the 2017 ones say Scott. Kind of interesting. I'll just here mention. Well, maybe it's all right. I don't know actually. Did it pass? As long as reuse is not upset, then yeah, it looks like it passed. So maybe that's fine. I've seen some like this before as well, but I've also seen some where it will just list multiple people. So yeah, I don't know if there's a preferred one way or the other that's better, but I know I have seen this before and it seems okay to me. So we do have our try block catching our import error. And the first import is typing, which is good. From typing, import optional in this case. It doesn't matter really what we import here. Different libraries might have different needs, but the important thing is that the very first one in this try block should be either import typing or like from typing import something. That part is important. We want the typing import to occur first inside this try block. That way, if this fails, then the rest of these things will not actually get imported. So that part looks good to me. Init returns none, which makes sense. Read temperature, I would expect, I think, to return a value, but let's take a look at what it does. It is internal. It's marked with a leading underscore, which means it's, you know, essentially kind of like a private method, a private function. And it does not actually return, so there is no return inside of here. The return none is correct. You know, given the name read temperature, I would have expected it to get a temperature reading and return that. But it looks like instead it is putting it into here. What it looks like to me is it's reading it out of the registers and then putting it into this. I don't know if this is technically a property or just a field, but it's basically like a variable that's on this class, or really on the instance of this class when it's instantiated in memory. So this is the BMP 280 class, and on that class there's a variable called _t_fine. This read temperature function is updating that variable. So my guess is then the intention is some other function will read it from here and actually return it to the user. But since we have no return here, none is correct. We have no arguments, so everything looks good there. Reset, this one also has no return, so none is good here. Write control measure, again, no arguments and no return, so returning none is good. Get status, this one says it returns an int, which does make sense to me. If it's going to read a byte from a particular status, that's going to be expressed as an int. So that looks good to me. Same thing here. This one's also reading a byte from one of the registers. You know, it's also going to end up being an int. Write config. This one shows return none, which does look correct to me. We don't have any return statements in here. And none of these have arguments, so we still haven't done any like argument typing yet. It's returned so far mode. Loud values are set in the mode enum class. This one is typed as int, but I don't know off the top of my head, so what I'm going to do is just scroll and find the that enum mode, which these are ints, yeah, 0, 1, and 3. They're expressed as hexadecimal numbers, but they are still integers. So I assume those are the ones that this mode thing is talking about. mode setter. So this one does have an argument, which is called value. It's going to be an int, which makes sense because it's going to be one of those three values. Oh, actually, this is a different place. Let's look at this. You know what I'm going to do actually is pull this up in PyCharm. The GitHub preview page here is nice. Yeah, we can do that. The GitHub preview page is nice because it highlights everything for you. But being able to open it in PyCharm is nice as well because it doesn't fold any of the code. Looks like I'll need to clone this real fast. So let's do that. I have a bunch of the libraries already cloned, but turns out not this one. And then I'll open it. Oh, you know what I found out actually recently? I'm going to try this new trick here. So we can go into it. And then we can go pycharm.sh space dot slash. It's no sh. Okay, well, maybe I don't have it aliased or whatever. Pretty sure it is sh. I probably would need to know the path to it, or else I would need to add that place to my user path so that it would find it, but I'll do it this way for now. Close off some of these things. This was all stuff from before when I was running the meeting. So let's go here. Let's go GHPR list, GHPR checkout. Oh, this looks like I can update my GH. 36. 36. It's out. Now let's find that modes things. Oh, I see. Okay, it declares them as individual variables, but then it just puts them into a tuple here. So it is actually the same values we looked at before. It is actually the same values. And those are ints, so this does make sense. This doesn't have a return, so none is good there. Jump back to GitHub now, but I'll just kind of bounce back and forth as needed. And the PyCharm is nice because I can scroll to different sections and I can see parts of the code that weren't necessarily changed. This GitHub preview page, well, I've unfolded a bunch of them now, but it does this collapsing stuff here where it tries to like collapse portions of the code that weren't touched by the PR, which is nice because it, whittles it down to just the part that has changed. But sometimes you want to look at other stuff. Like right there, I wanted to look at something that was declared at a different part of this file. So it's nice to be able to just look at the whole file too. So we already did read temperature. Where were we? We were on mode writing. Yes, right here. No return. Makes sense. Standby period is showing an int. Control the inactive period when in normal mode. Allowed standby periods are in the standby enum class. So this is most likely correct as well as an int, but I will double check. I'm not super familiar with this library, so I don't just know all this stuff off the top of my head. Here's the standbys, and these indeed are all ints. Again, they are expressed in hexadecimal, 0x something, but they are all ints, so that seems fine. Standby period value int and returns none, so this is the setter. Sense overscan temperature, overscan enums, so same thing. I'm sure this will be same, but let's just check. Indeed, yep, here it is. These values here, definitely ints. Overscan pressure returns an int, and then setter takes an int. It's none, makes sense. It's like there's a bunch of these properties where it's going to return a type, and then it's also going to take a value of a type. So those should always match, and so far they have. This one is the IIR filter. It's here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's good. Config. This one has an int. Value to be written. Device's control measurement register. Oops, I gotta answer the phone here. Hello? Yes, hello. All right. Was the workers about 15 or 20 minutes out, so I don't know. I'll probably just cut off the stream in another 10 or 15 minutes or so and keep a lookout for them. I may come back later on this evening, stream some more. I'll definitely be working on some more stuff. We'll see. To be written to the control measure. Control measure. I assume this is measure. One's interesting. It's getting these things in bit shifting, adding together with the mode. It does make sense that it would be int though, because we have seen all of these, I think, so far. Overscan, temperature, pressure, and mode, and all of those were ints. And so it's just performing bitwise and addition. If you have ints and you do bitwise math and you do addition, you should end up with ints at the end as well. So that makes sense. I guess this one is read-only. Looks like it's not something that you set, or else it's done somewhere else, I guess. Measurement time. So this one is a float instead of an int. Typical time in milliseconds required to complete a measurement. A float makes sense because it's doing multiplication, and in this case, it's also adding a decimal. So we would end up with a float in that case. Depends on what it's multiplying by here. If these are ints, I think they were, I'm not 100% sure, then I guess technically this one you would end up with an int, but this one you would always end up with a float because of this 0.5. Honestly, maybe multiplying changes it to a float. I'm not actually sure. Time typical returns a float. Time max makes sense that it would be the same. And this one even starts with a float and does multiplications with more decimals. So that one's definitely a float. Whereas this one seems like if multiplication of two ints results in another int, this one it seems like could be int or float, but this one seems like will always be float. And I'm not actually sure. It's possible when you multiply two things, that it changes to a float. I'm not actually sure. I know division does. Like, I think if you divide like 4 by 2, the resulting object is 2.0, which will be a float type object. Even though 4 and 2 were both ints when they went in. Multiplication might be the same. But sure. Temperature as a float makes sense because it's dividing by a float. Even if it was dividing by an int, you would be getting a float just because, like what I was just talking about, where it's 4 over 2, for instance, lead to a float. One even is explicitly dividing by a decimal, which is going to also help lead to a float object. Pressure. It says optional, which means that it could sometimes return none, which the docstring also supports here. either none or a float, and a float definitely makes sense with some of the math that we got going on inside of here. Altitude, float, yep. Decimals and multiplication, powers, division, all of these things are leading to floats. Read coefficients, this one says it returns none. Makes sense, no return statement. Read byte, this one takes a register address, which will be an int. Again, probably a hexadecimal int, but an int nonetheless, and returns an int, which makes sense because the places where we saw this get used previously were also typed as an int, so that matches what we see here. It's good. Read 24. Register, again, this takes an int as an address. This one is returning a float, which is making sense because it's actually converting it to a float, and it's also doing the multiplication by a decimal. Register address, again, that'll be an int. Length makes sense as an int. You know, usually length in bytes or something like that is going to be represented as an int. Okay, again, write register. This one is address, so that's an int. The value is also an int. That's what we were writing into them. Okay, I2C as the bus IO object, and then address, an int, returns none. Register is an int, length is int, this returns a byte array. So this one is able to read more than one value. It's reading an array of values. Makes sense, byte array would be what it is, because that's what's getting generated here and then ultimately returned. Register int value int. Writes one 8-bit value. One 8-bit value can be represented as hexadecimal digits, kind of like this, and so that's why this one is also an int. Spy. I think we don't want the optional on this one. This one I happen to have prior knowledge of because there was some comments on the PR. I do think it's also typical that a init would be returning none. Okay. Address length, both ints, makes sense. This is the multi-byte one. Byte array. Register address will be int, value will be int. Yeah, because that's one value. Basically, this one can return multiple values, but the writing ones are writing one value. So it's like maybe it depends which address you're reading. Sometimes it might be multiple, sometimes it might be single. I think those are the only changes I see, though. Everything else looked pretty good to me. So let's do this. Request changes. More requested changes. It's looking good to me. On to these. This again. His name Bill. Bill. Alright, so we'll leave that, and Bill will hopefully come back and make those couple other tweaks whenever they have a chance. And then I think this will be good to go after that, honestly. I'll see if TechTrick also left a review, so I'll see if TechTrick is going to take another look or not, but I think we're pretty good after we get those last few to get this one merged in. So let me see if there's anything else quick and or easy here. I am gonna probably cut it short, even though I haven't even been going that long. Where does it say? Just about 30 minutes. Probably gonna cut it short and go wait for the repair people, and then I might come back a bit later on after they're done. See though. Output. Okay, looks like it was not passing CR originally, CI rather, but it is now. I'll take a quick peek at the code. Honestly, I don't even really know what this device is. EMC 2101, I'd have to look it up. I definitely don't have any experience with it. Like good stuff though. Everything is. Nothing seems particularly out of place for a an I2C driver. I2C or SPI, actually, I don't know which it is. Round. I don't know about the rounding here. Not sure if it's relevant to the other changes or not. Oh, well, I guess it mentions up there. I don't really have a preference, but I mean, user code could always round it if it wanted to. If the thing has a more precise value than 2 decimals, I think I lean towards just return whatever precision it has, and then if the user code wants to like show it on a display or something like that, then certainly it makes sense to round it off to a shorter number of decimals. But again, I don't know too much about this driver, so I don't know if that's like, maybe it doesn't even have the precision. Maybe sometimes it returns these numbers that, but it's like within the margin of error or whatever, and like this stuff can't be trusted anyway. In which case rounding it seems fine to me. Manufacturing part and die revision. Using 4 EMC 2101s. More control and status output. Yeah, I think I'll leave this open and maybe give a review on the parts of it that I can comment on, which is not a whole lot, but I can process going. This one's doc strings already merged before I got here. LED animations. These ones are on my short list to start looking into. I know they're both by Mark. Yeah, Mark Gambler. And I've been kind of putting off prodding Mark along on these because I knew that he was working on zlib stuff in the core, which was also very, very helpful to me. I have a project in mind that's using the zlib stuff. I didn't want to be beating him up about PRs that are open while he's also working on something in the core for me. So that was taking a bit to do, but it is merged in now. So I think I will take a closer look at these two and ask about an update on those pretty soon. Time this week, maybe. What is this? Create this? It must be just a different variant of hardware. Oh, hey, I've done this before. Oh, okay, it was failing the CI checks. Nice. Okay. The one thing is you could put your own name. And put your own name and the current year for this copyright. Comment. New file. This file is brand new. Person submitted this whole thing. I think it's probably just a different variation of the hardware. I guess I'm not super familiar with LSM60S, but I think there's multiple kinds, and this is just a new kind. Oh yeah, okay. It really didn't take hardly any code at all, truthfully. It's basically just extending this, and then it has a different ID. It's always nice when you run across a piece of hardware and you're like trying to implement support for it, and then there's driver that exists already, but it's just a different ID or something. It's nice to be able to just swap that and quit working. Oh wow, okay. They sent a photo of the actual work person that's coming. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so same here. Thing here. It's your own name this year. Rig. I don't know if it's new. I guess I'll call it a different variant of hardware. All right. Okay, I think I'm going to call it there for now. I'm going to head out. I'm going to go watch and let this repair person in. Try to go through the garage so we don't have to play a game of Corral the Cat. I will be working on some more stuff later on, but I don't know if I'll turn the, I don't know for sure if I'll turn the stream on. So maybe, maybe not. If you want to get a notification if I do, you can follow me over on Twitch, and that will should send you out a notification or show up on your sidebar on Twitch whenever I go live. So that's how you can get notified if you're interested in following along the work I'm doing. Thank you to everybody who watched, and yeah, hope everybody has a good day, and I'll catch you next time, whenever it may be.